Okay, and greetings. Welcome to another edition of the Pan African Community News. It's the 25th of September 2022, and you're here with me, Brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu, and hopefully on the other screen, camera's muted, but hopefully she'll unmute, our wonderful sister, Oleander.
Greetings all. Hope everybody's doing well this evening.
Cool. Now, if somebody could give us a heads up just to let us know that you can hear us okay, that would be amazing. As usual, let me just try and set everything up here. You can use the comments and the tweets and the chats and all that sort of stuff. Sister Oleander manages that far better than I do. So we should be live on YouTube and Facebook. So an acknowledgement will be greatly appreciated. We've got a jam-packed program for you today. Just to remind you that we do this every fortnight between 7 and I suppose 8:30. It's news, views and reviews from a Pan-African perspective in the UK. So even though we're talking about UK news, we look at this as Pan-Africanist. And I want to get started with the news, but as ever, we usually start with libations for our ancestors. And let me go to the first slide. And the first we remember is of Tony Paris, who passed away aged 65. Now, Tony was one of the 3 men wrongly convicted of the murder of Cardiff woman Lynette White in 1988. Him, alongside Yusuf Abudali and Stephen Miller, became known as the Cardiff Three, and they were jailed in 1990, but cleared at the Court of Appeal a couple of years later. Now, despite receiving full apologies from the South Wales Police, the corruption trial against the former police officers collapsed due to missing evidence. It was later discovered, but by then it was too late. Now, his daughter has said that she will continue to raise awareness and fight for those who face injustice. So we remember our brother Tony Paris, now an ancestor, was a champion of justice, not only for himself, but others who are being dealt with miscarriages of justice. The next we remember is, we spoke about this at our last broadcast, was our elder Roy Hackett. Now, the funeral has taken place. And for those who don't remember, our elder Roy Hackett was a civil rights campaigner. He was an organizer of the Bristol bus boycott, and he helped overturn a ban that was preventing people of African and Asian heritage from becoming drivers and conductors. And his works then actually paved the way for the 1960s Race Relations Act. Now, hundreds of people turned up at his funeral. It was a beautiful sight. I haven't got the images here, but you can see them online, paying tribute to him. He passed on the 2nd of August, so it was a month ago, and he was aged 93. And as we say, that's a good innings. But we have to remember him. And just as something else to remember about him was that he was also the co-founder of the committee that set up the St. Paul's Carnival in 1968. So he had an active life in championing race equality. And again, we remember. You're watching me, Brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu. It's the Pan African Community News Network on the Galley Live. If you can hear us okay, you can see us okay, please send a comment, a tweet, whatever these things are. And Sister Oleander, who's with me, will respond and stuff, so we know that you can hear us okay. We're going to keep going on because we've got a jam-packed program as ever. And I'm going to continue on with the next libation. And this one, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the man that you can see in the picture there, is of the amazing musician. He was a giant called Ramsey Lewis, pianist. Now, he passed away last week at the age of 87. He was often unfairly dismissed and described as a commercial, in brackets, jazz artist, because he did tunes that became popular. It's a really silly way to view him. He was a jazz artist. He was a jazz musician. And if you know the In Crowd, amazing track, you'll understand that anyone who's saying that he's not a jazz artist is just living in cloud cuckoo land. Anyway, his works touched so many lives. He launched numerous careers and was mentored, and he himself mentored so many during his life. He was also one of the pioneers of what we now call soul jazz and all different subgenres of African music. Like I said, Incrad was one of my favorite cuts. What tended to happen was that there was a phase where jazz, just like any other art form, started to transform and started to experiment. And some people moved away from what was recognized as improvisation and started playing, in a way that was more accessible to soul artists as well. And this was actually a really important move and progression in the history of jazz music. We're seeing now the legacy of that in artists like Gregory Porter. But Ramsey Lewis was one of the the forebearers of our widening and broader definition of jazz. We also see it in hip hop, and he's now become an ancestor we remember. Thank you. And the last libation for this week is this one touched me deeply. This is the amazing jazz legend called Pharoah Sanders, and he passed away just, I think it was yesterday, at the age of 81. Now, what can I say about him? Pharoah Sanders was not only just a saxophonist supreme. There's a clip on YouTube where you can see him playing in this tunnel, with another musician. It's just an amazing piece of work. But he was known for his unique style and collaborations with people like John Coltrane or Alice Coltrane. He was named, incidentally, Pharaoh by the amazing Sun Ra, who was spoken about before. My favorite track, You've Got to Have Freedom, off the album Journey to the One, and the title track Journey to the One. It only gives a snippet of his musical genius. So he joined the ancestors, and it's been a rough week in the world of jazz. But again, he passed away at the age of 81, and his contribution will never be forgotten. And it's a shame this program, I'm going to find a way to incorporate music without it being blocked on different channels like YouTube and Facebook, because we do need music. I think it would be nice to have it in this program, but I'll come across that one. I'll try and solve that one another time. Anyway, give thanks. And now we're going to move to the part of the program which we call the community news section. And again, just to give you a heads up, you're watching Jan Sapo, or not Jan Sapo. God, Jan Sapo was the Pan-African drum when we used to run the radio program. You're watching the Pan-African Community News Network. It's on Legally Live, and we're just talking about our news in the UK from a Pan-African perspective. I'm laughing now, but the next story isn't a laughing matter. And please remember, you can do those tweets and whatever things, comments. I'm hoping that we're not just going out to no one. That'd be quite embarrassing. That's to record the whole thing all over again. So the first slide I'm going to go to is the case that if you have been interested in and following any news story in the UK that you should be familiar with, and that's the story of Chris Cabra. Now, Chris Cabra was the young man who was murdered, killed, however you want to phrase it, by the police. And he's 24 years of age, and there has been a stream of protests, including a day of action, and that took place over the last few weeks. We spoke about this again at the last program. I just want to give you a reminder as well of the way that the mainstream media tried to bury this story, tried to bury this narrative, and it's only been the valiant works of our community and allies. I'm not going to take them out of the equation, who've actually magnified this cause and moved it forward. Now, I don't know if you knew that there was a massive protest that took place, I think it was a fortnight ago on Saturday, and Sky News actually was reporting on it, and they actually characterize thousands of people protesting in support and solidarity with Chris Cabra's family, and reported that it was actually a gathering of mourners for the recently deceased British monarch. Now, Ofcom, which is the TV watchdog, as they call it, received just under 600 complaints about the incident, and Sky News has issued an apology. And I'm not going to labour the point. It's, this is how media works. But it's really important to remember that the following Saturday was another demonstration, which was a day of action, which took place outside police stations in I think it was Brighton. I think there might be one in Leicester. I was at the one at Scotland Yard, and we had a realm, not a realm, what's that word? I don't want to say a gaggle, a gaggle of speakers who came up and offered some powerful words of solidarity, to the family. I think one of the things that really broke my heart was when one of the family members says that Chris's partner, who's pregnant with his child, was supposed to be organising the baby shower, and she just can't do it. She's in a situation now where she's bringing a child into this world without its father. And so the one thing what she felt happy about the support that we're giving is knowing that we are showing the child when the child is born that we care, that there are people who are actually out there showing support for him, family, and calling for justice. This is really a case that is going to keep going on and on and on. There's other updates. The family has now seen the footage. They've met with the police, the Met Police Commissioner Mark Crawley. We'll talk about him that later. They just want justice. They're stepping back from some of the media outrage, because as we know what happens in these situations, the right-wing media in particular starts to demonize the victims of police brutality, and that's starting to happen. I'm not going to repeat any of their allegations. The reality was that Chris was unarmed and he was killed. He was shot in the head. So this is not a re-remember, because it's an active case. There's other cases. Olamide, the young man who was tasered and died after he was hounded to his death on Thames Bridge. There's another campaign which is not getting enough media footage. There was a what do you call it? A Twitter space. There was a Twitter space that was held by Melissa Sigodu. I'm so bad with names, my apologies. And the Daily Mirror, and that was a really interesting case. A lot of people came up and supporting. I would just ask that you use whatever platforms you have to keep these narratives running, to keep this going until the family secure justice. I'm going to move to the next story. Remember, you're watching Pan-African Community News Network. We should be live on Facebook and YouTube. Hopefully you can see us and hear us okay live. I'm here with the wonderful sister Oleander. She's monitoring the tweets. Please give us some work to do. So if you've got comments, you're welcome to share them, and she'll read them out over the year for us. If you've got questions as well, she'll read them out over the air, and I can try and answer them. I'm going to move on to the next story because we do have a jam-packed program. So the next case is that of Dr. Mike Leary Owen. Now, he is a 60-year-old academic who was sacked from London South Bank University after being accused of bullying his line manager and playing the race card. What do you do with something like this? He lost the case, unfortunately. He said that he was unfairly dismissed and suffered racial discrimination. The Employment Tribunal has said that they think that he wasn't discriminated because they used a term that he was, I think, witch hunting them. It was something like that. And so now he faces £170,000 in costs to his former employee. So the last program I spoke about a case where someone took an institution to the Employment Tribunal and it worked out positively. But I really want to make it clear to you that actually it's never a guaranteed win-win situation. In this case, we have our brother who lost his case is now facing almost £250,000 fine costs to defend himself against his unfair dismissal. I don't know much about the case other than that, but just giving solidarity out to our brother. There's something crooked in the justice system that leaves us in that situation.
Yes, sorry, Toyin, 1 second. Just wanted to read out a message from BCESG UK saying, great to have you and your queen back. You were greatly missed.
Oh, give thanks. Much appreciated. It's good to be back, and it's lovely to hear from you and anyone else who appreciates our putting together these programs. So give thanks for that. So the next story I want to talk about is a statement that came out from the University of Cambridge this Thursday, where the university actually admitted it has benefited from the proceeds of slavery during its history, and it's actually promised to expand scholarships for African students and fund more research into Ma'afa. Now, those of you who are not familiar with University of Cambridge, it's the Cambridge of the Oxbridge, the bridge of the Oxbridge. It does have a scholarship program for African students, but that scholarship program was initiated by the amazing artist known as Stormzy, where he put money in his own pocket to finance this program, because the universities weren't doing enough for widening participation to make sure that we can actually get involved. So now the university is saying that it's actually going to now keep supporting that program and extend it, which is a good thing. But this research, based on its study into African enslavement and whether it profited and proceeds came from it, what the research has come out and said is that the university itself wasn't directly engaged with enslavement, but it acknowledges that it got significant benefits from it. What happened is that the researchers found that there were many Cambridge colleges who were involved in both the East India Company and the Royal African Company, and those are the two colonial empire institutions that were involved in colonialism and enslavement. And they are active companies. I mean, I call them companies, but they're criminal enterprises. We shouldn't even use the word company because it makes them sound legitimate. And if people understand why there were many of us angry, with people saying that we should have this national mourning or participate and cry for the loss of the monarch, it was the Royal African Company that was involved in enslavement of African people and the continued and colonization and neo-colonialism. So what Cambridge has said, to its credit, is that it's going to set up a dedicated centre to research the legacies of enslavement and deepen ties with universities in the Caribbean and Africa. So we'll wait and see what happens. It's good talk. Let's see if they put their money where their mouth is. I do remember that they have one of these statues still there, which they haven't taken down. So we are watching an institution that's talking at both sides of its mouth. So, but this is, I guess, a progressive. At least it's acknowledging the truth. Hasn't apologized as far as I know yet. Okay, the next story is one that it chokes me up. This is the story of Anthony Walker. I mean, and this, okay, let me be clear. The headline story is that this is a story about Michael Barton, who was the killer, the murderer of Anthony Walker. The reason why I feel so emotional with this story is because this is around a time, this is in the early days of when the Galley started. We're talking about almost 20 years ago, when we started putting out, news and our radio station. And I remember the day we found out that young Anthony Walker was walking home with his girlfriend and a few friends, and he was harassed by a group of Europeans, and they tried to ignore them, kept on walking, and two of the European boys came up behind them and murdered Anthony with an ice pick, which they placed in the back of his head. It was traumatic, to say the least. I mean, I'm not all of my children were even born when this happened.
I remember that story very, very well. And I just, it actually gave me nightmares at the time. I remember just a young a young man just going about his business, and to be just murdered like that. And now this person is going to be freed from prison. You know, wow.
I know. This is one of the reasons why I'm so adamant that it's important that we have a calendar of the events that we think are important to us. And that we have, like we had the libations at the beginning of this program, we remember section. We remember our ancestors who did some amazing works, but we also memorialize those young lives that were extinguished before they had a chance to reach their potential. We know about Stephen Lawrence, and there's a few others that, you know, I'm not going to go through them all now, but this story is about Michael Barton. Like I said, he was one of the you know, the teenagers at the time. I think he was, what was he? How old was he then? No, I can't remember. He was one of the young men convicted of murdering. No, he wasn't a teenager. He was one of the young men convicted of murdering Anthony Walker. He's set to walk free on parole from prison. He's now 33 years of age. They've said that the parole board has said that they're satisfied that he's, you know, he's suitable for release. He's addressed his racist attitudes. I don't know how you prove that. He was jailed for life with a minimum term of 23 years. Anyway, he's got his minimum term reduced by an appeal. His mother is Anthony Walker's mother. You know, feels gutted. She doesn't support us, but he's going to be out. I think he's going to be on license for the rest of his life. He's going to be tagged, there'll be curfews. But it's important to know that this is what's taking place. This is apparently justice when you murder an innocent African boy for the crime of going out. His partner at the time was European. Talking about injustice, this is the ongoing saga of the Windrush compensation scheme. We know it's not fit for purpose, but we've now got even further evidence of how disgusting it is. I think it's who was it? It was the Labour MP Kate Asamoah. She did a freedom of information request to the government and found out that only 1% of the payment or the payout reviews were successful. And she has exposed how there's been around 3,500 claimants in 2021 who've made appeals saying that the settlement isn't enough, and only 42 of them, that's 42 out of 3,500, have been agreed. It's less than 1%. So it's quite a disgusting outcome. The image you're seeing there is of a Windrush campaigner called Eulalie Pennant. She has terminal cancer. Her partner is a member who is a person who was affected by the Windrush scandal. She's asked for extended leave to remain because she has cancer. Like I said, terminal cancer. But the Home Office has said, nah, we're sorry that you got cancer, but we're not going to expedite your case and allow you to stay here with your partner and get treatment, even though we know that you're going to die. We're going to ship you back on the plane to Jamaica and separate you from your family in the UK. This is Britain. This is modern Britain. And we now have a government. People seem to think that just because Priti Patel was no longer Home Secretary, that things are going to get better. Just because the clown, Bojo is no longer is Prime Minister, things are going to get better. Because the billionaire Rishi Sunak is no longer holding the purse strings, things are going to get better. No, in August. African people have to fight for everything, even in a compensation scheme, which was set up in the aftermath of such a horrendous crime carried out by the state. We're in the same scenario where this scheme, which was put together by an African, by the way, I'm not even going to go on about that, is essentially the people who committed the crime, the government, deciding how much and who is eligible for reparation. In fact, I shouldn't say reparation, because this isn't reparation. This is compensation for the crime. There is no reparation. If there was reparation, we wouldn't have had the flights to Rwanda nonsense take place. So anyway, that's that story. I should say Eulalie Pennant is 64 years of age. They're trying to give her, I'm not even going to say those words. They're trying to hurt her health condition by just stressing her out while she's got terminal cancer. It's a madness. Okay, so welcome. You're listening to the Pan-African Community Network Community News Network. This is Legally Live. It's the 25th of September 2022. You are with me, your host, Brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu. Sister Oleander is with me. She's looking over the comments on the Facebook and the YouTube. So please feel free to share your comments, ask questions if there's anything that you want to talk about or discuss or get clarification on. Got a lot of news to cover today, so I'm going to continue with the program. And we're going to move into a section which is going to address policing matters. So I said I was going to talk a little bit more about police situation with Chris Kaba. And so, like I said, the family has now seen the body-worn footage. They call these acronyms. So body-worn cameras and body-worn footage is a term they use for those cameras that the police now have to wear, which they often turn off when it's filming something that's inconvenient. And the family had a private meeting with the Met Commissioner, like I mentioned. And Chris's family, his mother, just said she wants justice for her son. She just wants justice for her son. I don't know what else to say. I mean, she's quoted after the meeting as just saying that it's really hard. It's very hard. As I've said before, my heart is already broken. What I want is justice for my son. I want the truth. How many times does Chris Kaba's mum have to say this? Now we've been told not only is the IOPC investigation going to be looking at it as a homicide, which is what it was doing from the first place. The moment you're looking at deaths in custody, it's looking at homicide, even though this new category will find out how the IOPC consider it. Legally has sent a freedom of information request, so we're waiting to hear back from that. But the IOPC has now said that they're going to consider whether race was a factor in the fatal shooting. I know many of us are excited about the prospects of getting another report from the IOPC, and and a comment on whether race was a factor. Well, the first thing I should say is that we have to be mindful of looking into looking forward to more and more reports which just regurgitate the nonsense that racism is bad, and there may have been bias. We're not sure. The police officer was in fear of his life. Even when the IOPC say that it's going to look into whether race was a factor, that's a nonsensical statement. It should be saying it's looking into whether institutional racism was a factor, whether structural violence was a factor. These are the questions that we need answered, not whether race was a factor. If you're going to be so narrow, you might as well, you might as well be accurate and say we're going to look into whether Chris's ethnic background was a factor, or whether the ethnic background of the officer was a factor, or whether there was racial profiling involved inside the operation. These are the kind of logical, sometimes I just can't. Anyway, an inquest into Chris's death will be opened on the 4th of October. We just want justice for Chris. And I think I've forgotten the date now. Oh, my memory is getting so bad. The United Friends and Family campaign, their annual rally, is taking place pretty soon. I think I mentioned it in our last program. Please, if you are not interested in joining an organization, if you're not interested in donating to an activist organization, then please just turn up for the rally. Please, when the media tries to move on from this story 3 to 6 months from now, start it up all over again using your social media. All these little actions help. And those of you who are already engaged and actually doing things like stop and search scrutiny, get in touch. We need to talk. We need to work together. Or else we're going to be back here, same time next week, when another innocent young African is murdered. And I mean it when I say young African, even though we know that elders are murdered as well. I say young African because, of course, as we know, they're also targeting the young children who they fear are involved in some kind of armed criminality. And the approach, the scattergun approach, is actually pulling up too many innocent babies. So, what other policing story do we have to cover today? Well, we have the wonderful story of a serving Metropolitan Police officer who's been charged over making racist WhatsApp messages. Now, some of you might be thinking, "Oh, Toyin, man, WhatsApp message? Cut some slack, man. In their personal time, let them say what they want. As long as it doesn't affect their professional performance and their duties on the beat, then let it go. Let it go." Well, you know what? No, can't let it go. They didn't let it go for that Superintendent Robbins when someone passed an image over her telling her to investigate an act of child abuse, and then they've done everything to fire her, to discredit her. We can't let it go. When Nicole and Bibbo were selfied by police officers, their murdered bodies were selfied by police officers and shared through WhatsApp. We can't let it go when we remember that people like Wayne Couzens, another serving officer, rapes and assaults women. The police. I can't to say this to some people. The police are not just your everyday organization. They're not just like the scouts, or like I don't know, like I can't even. There's no comparison for what the police are. The police are the first interaction with the state, the first embodied interaction with the state that most people ever experience in their life, if they ever experience a meeting with the state in physical form. That's why all the propaganda around the monarch's death was so huge. That's why people queued up for miles just to take to be seen on camera next to a coffin with the monarch's body in it. We don't get to interact with the state. The only time we interact with the state, other than local authorities through bills, is when a police officer charged with the power to arrest, given a monopoly on violence, actually either helps us at our time of need, or for those who are racist and corrupt, abuses us when we're already in distress. So we can't treat the police as an organization where its members who have guns, who have tasers, who have the power of arrest, who have the power to strip search you on the street, to abuse you in your own home, to knock down your door. My neighbor's door last week was banged down by police officers. We can't treat them like normal. So when we hear that Thomas Phillips, that's his name, the Met officer, has been suspended with full pay over racist WhatsApp messages, we had to be thankful for the fact that he's been suspended. We had to be annoyed for the fact that we, the public, are still paying for him. So he's still getting money from us. But due process, guilty until innocent until proven guilty. But we also had to acknowledge that the Met's been placed under special measures, right? I mean, I just saw a recent graph with a list of failings, a litany of failings of the police, including their inability to sort out stop and search, to record stop and search accounts properly. But hey, Phillips, he was based in the Metropolitan Police Force's intelligence branch. He now faces 5 counts of sending offensive messages in breach of the Communications Act of 2003. Yeah, 5 counts. There's probably loads and loads more. Now, he's pleaded not guilty, and he was given bail. This is what the CPS is telling us, and he's going to appear at Westminster Court in January next year. So we can only wait and see what the outcome is. Now, I know that the new commissioner has said that he's mooting this idea about giving all serving officers mobile phones for them to use, and the hope is that they can monitor those mobile phones and track them, and if anyone makes racist comments, sexist comments, corrupt statements on those mobile phones, then they can be fired. And in principle, it sounds amazing, right? But he's not an anthropologist. He's not a social scientist. There's two things why this is a flawed plan. The first is that humans are creative lot, especially corrupt humans. And so if there's a phone that says office and there's a phone that says personal, then it's really easy for a corrupt officer to say, only talk to me on my other number, right? This is the reality of what's going to happen. The second thing, just, I don't like talking economics, but just from a public point of view, I mean, how many police officers are there in the Met? Is it 40, 50,000 officers? I mean, even if you bought a cheap Nokia, a cheap Samsung, how much money are you going to waste equipping officers who already have one or two mobile phones with another police issue mobile phone? No. This approach might sound good. It might give great headlines. The truth of the matter is that this can only be solved by taking a proper approach to investigation of corrupt police officers, or shifting the culture inside the police. So when someone, what's that word, whistleblowers about an officer who's been abusing their powers, when what they call inside the police a supervisor is getting a lot of complaints, or people making comments that this supervisor is tolerating some bad behavior, that the Met Police acts on it, and they're not. This commissioner's not even, he's decided that he's not going to meet with the chair, Andy George of the National Black Police Association. He just snubbed him. He's also issued a statement saying that, he's going to tell his officers don't take the knee, And it might seem, oh, great, he's not focusing on what people are calling wokery, and that in itself, that pejorative term, is something that actually needs to be abolished. It might seem like that, and they're focused on the rest, but no, it's not. Because it means that his approach to diversity, for inclusivity, for equality, for justice, for anti-corruption, for making sure that the Met is fit for purpose to serve the diverse communities that it's charged to protect, and which it has failed catastrophically, which is why it's in special measures. It means that his approach to dealing with that is actually ignoring some of the concerns, some of the consultations, some of the symbolic gestures, sometimes just meeting, talking, working with the communities that they spectacularly are failing. I'm sorry, went on a bit too long. I probably do too much work in policing. I'll move to the next story. It just pees me off, if I'm honest with you. Okay, so if you want to know why it pees me off, because it's not just the Met. This story, which is going to be, no surprise to anyone who's been involved with legality or has an interest in justice or accountability from the police. We've got some more statistics. Hooray! More reports. Hooray! African people are almost 6 times more likely to be stopped and searched in Kent. Boo! I've lost count of how many times I've been told this. We know that despite plans being put in place to tackle what they call racialized inequalities, African people are more likely to be stopped and searched, to be harassed, to be involved or subject to the criminal justice system. And now we know this is not just something that's just takes place in London, takes place in Kent, and it takes place across the whole UK. I could go through the statistics. I could tell you that there was 13.72 stop and searches for every 1,000 African people, compared to 2.54 for their European counterparts. But what does it really mean? It just means nothing's changed. It's business as usual. It means, as has been reported last week, that the Metropolitan Police record and how it records the grounds to stop and search has actually gone backwards. And this is not according to some radical Pan-Africanists like me. This is actually coming from the Inspectorate of Constabulary. That's the police watchdog who says that the Met Police is failing. Not I. They know they're failing. So I think that's going to enough, hopefully, this week for policing. So let's move on to some other news. Before I continue, I just want to say that this is Pan-African Community News. You're watching myself, Brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu, just going through some of the news from the last couple of weeks, talking about it from a Pan-African perspective. And it's good to be back. We do this every Sunday between 7 and what time is it? I'm so bad with timekeeping. Oh, we're not doing too bad, actually. Between 7 and we try to do it in an hour, normally end around 8:30. Yeah, I'm here in the studio with Sister Oleander. Sister Oleander, I don't know if you want to wave and say hi. Don't know if we had any comments coming in or anything like that, or is everyone doing a bit that shy thing again?
Hi, everybody. Hey. I think, yeah, we haven't got any other comments come in as yet, but please, people, do feel free. We're family now, so please do say something if you want to, of course. Make a comment or ask a question. We'll be looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. I don't bite. So you're always welcome to share. And you can disagree. That's the one thing I always want to say as well. If you disagree with my analysis and what I'm saying, speak up. If you have other insights, speak up, share it. We're fine. So that's not a problem. This is not one of those news programs where we beat down on people. We're actually just trying to share the news and just actually to raise our consciousness and our awareness about these issues from a Pan-African perspective. But I'm going to move on to the next story. This one, unfortunately, as anyone who's been watching the programs will know that we have been featuring of late missing people's cases. And this one is the story of our elder Emmanuel. He's a very, very vulnerable elder, aged 91. The Ealing police have launched a public appeal in a bid to find him. He's been missing since Thursday. He went missing on, I think it was around 5 p.m. He was wearing a blue and white shirt, brown trousers, black shoes, and a black hat. Now, the police have confirmed he is known to frequent Hanwell and Ealing, so he might be around the area. But if he's seen, please call the police, please, Ealing police, and you can find out. Tell them that you're trying to assist with us missing people's case. We don't have any other missing people this week. It's not because there aren't any missing peoples. I think we're going to have to start scaling up and talking about some of those missing people's cases again. I think we spoke about this earlier in the year, that we keep, I mean, the number of African people that go missing in the UK, some of them are found, some are never found, is beyond what you can even imagine. So please, anything you can do to assist the family with finding Emmanuel would be greatly appreciated. Now, the next section is health and well-being, and we have a couple of stories to address, and we're hoping that we're going to bring our live guest in this week. Please bear with us as we trial the technology. This will be our first live guest in a few minutes. We're running a little bit earlier than we planned. So I'm going to run with the first story, and let me see if I can get that. That is one of a study which has found that Britons of African and South Asian heritage are dying younger after being diagnosed with dementia. Now, I'm not going to go over the conditions that come with dementia. It's a particularly traumatic experience for those who have it and for the families who have to care for those with it. But what we are finding that on top of that, those people of African and Asian heritage who suffer from dementia are actually dying younger and sooner after being diagnosed than people of European heritage. Now, this research has been based on medical records of over 21 years. It's to know this is taking place on top of the problems that come and the challenges that come with the condition is particularly galling. The study was done by academics from University College London, it's UCL, it's where I'm based, and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Just to place this into context, we know that people of African heritage are 22% more likely to suffer from dementia than their European peers. So I don't know what else to say. This is sad situation. This is the research that's come up. Unfortunately, this is not my area of expertise. I don't know the cause. It's good that we're being diagnosed. I have read that there are other factors like hypertension, just high blood pressure, kind of like the stressful lives we live, that's institutionalized racism, are likely to contribute towards us having a shorter life expectancy and passing away sooner when we're diagnosed with dementia than anyone else. But this is something we should be aware of and keep an eye out on, and actually do our best to provide extra support to those people that we know who are suffering from the condition. Now, the next story, for those of you who don't know, is about sickle cell. I'm going to just give an outline on this particular story, and then I'm going to pass over to our sister Oleander, who's got a report for us on this particular topic this week. So for those of you who don't know, it's Sickle Cell Month, and there has been a investigation launched looking to investigate racial inequalities for the first time. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to preempt what Sister Oleander's going to say, but I do know that there's approximately 15,000 people of African heritage in the UK that have sickle cell. And there was a story I read about as well, about a rare form of cancer that's affecting people with sickle cell trait. But that's probably something else we can come back to another time. So, Sister Oleander, I don't know if you want to take the reins for this particular section. Sister Oleander, are you there? Can't hear
Sorry,
you.
rookie mistake. I was still muted. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I was just going to say that our guest is due to join us actually at 10 past. So that's what they're expecting. I have messaged them to see if they can join us a little bit earlier, but that's fine. I just wanted to really talk a little bit about sickle cell. To be honest, I'm sometimes quite surprised when people have never heard of it before. So it's not something which I come across often, that people haven't heard of it, but there are people who haven't. And even those who look like us have also not heard of it. So as Toyin said, it affects around 15,000 people in England, and there is no cure, although there are various treatments, not that many, to be honest. And it is one of the most common genetic conditions in England. It actually affects mainly people who are from African or Caribbean heritage. And unlike any other life-threatening conditions, it has attracted much less resources in terms of research into treatment to support people. Despite being identified over 100 years ago, there's been far too many unnecessary deaths. And a parliamentary inquiry was published called No One's Listening in November 2021. And it actually revealed that many people with sickle cell, the healthcare practitioners who specialize in sickle cell, so that could be consultants or nurses, specialist nurses, actually feel that they don't have the correct tools to tackle the damage that sickle cell is responsible for. Also, in fact, in terms of how seriously ill patients get, it's hard for them to navigate through the system whilst tackling issues of racism from staff and the systems themselves. It's actually important to know that blood donations are essential for many people with sickle cell who have sickle cell. And not enough of our people, sadly, donate blood. And it's not just about the blood, it's also about organ donations, because where there's a lack of oxygen going to various organs around the body, sometimes those organs actually fail and people then are in need of transplants. Sadly, many warriors, sickle cell warriors, don't get to the opportunity to benefit from a donation. So there is another, how can I call it, another report that's currently being written, and it is looking at the continuation of support for people with sickle cell. The fact that there are not that many treatments for people, even though it has been known about for over 100 years. So they're actually looking at that, and they're actually looking at why and how racism affects people with sickle cell. There are many people who go through being looked at and treated as if they are drug addicts, because sickle cell is such a, it's someone once said that it's almost like if you imagine a pneumatic drill being switched on and actually vibrating against your bones, that's the depth and the level of pain that people go through when they actually have a sickle cell crisis, a particularly bad one.
Just Oleander, I mean, no, can I just quickly just say that that the report that is going to be taking place, this investigation, they're saying that they're going to do some original research into the experience of people with sickle cell, and this is going to include listening to patients and carers' first-hand accounts of their acute emergency hospital admissions and managing the condition at home. So I think hopefully that will talk to some of the issues that you've referred to. But I mean, you know, I'm familiar. I remember that there's been quite some high-level reports, like a parliamentary report, and I remember the Sickle Cell Society has also issued guidance and around this and evidence around this. So I mean, just in light of what you're just saying, I'm just wondering, you know, what's different? I mean, do you think that this is going to make change, or is it just really about continuing to raise awareness?
I think it has to make change, because there's just too many people that are going through the stress and the difficulties of living with this condition. It's all very well us saying that we're going to get a lot of people to go and get screened, which is absolutely really, really important for people to screen themselves before they have children. But it's not just about that. It's about learning about the condition. The research isn't there. It's just not enough research that's been done. And there are many people with sickle cell who are really, really interested in being a part of that research. And there's going to be various focus groups. I mean, I've been approached to say something about how sickle cell affects from a parent carer's point of view, and they're going to put that in the report as well. So it's, there are many people out there who are desperate to actually get some support and some help. What we've got to remember is sickle cell is not just about the pain. It's about the effect it has internally. It's about how, you can get, your bones can start to degenerate and just basically crumble. My mother had sickle cell, and that's exactly what happened to her with her shoulders. She had to have shoulder replacement. We used to joke and say she's like a bionic woman, but to be honest, without that, the whole arm would have probably just, the muscle would have wasted away, and etc. But even with all of that, you've still got everything else that can be affected. The fact that we know babies can have a stroke, it's just awful to know about, and to understand that people still don't really get it. They still feel that, well, if you're coming in hospital just to go and get some morphine, that means you must have some kind of addiction. And, there are many people who would prefer to stay at home and not go into hospital, because you don't get, it's not like you get a warm welcome, there's just so many things. This is actually Sickle Cell Awareness Month in September, and yet we still don't see enough about sickle cell out there, and I find it really difficult to understand that. Why do we get this issue? And that's why, looking at the fact that there is racism when it comes to, kind of a hierarchy of need almost, and I think, like, even as a parent carer, I remember the hospital that our son goes to, that they used to have a ward for them, which was right near the sort of well-being playroom area, and then all of a sudden they swapped it for children with cancer. And I asked questions. I said, why have you done that? Why are the sickle cell children being moved away from the well-being room, and they can't just sort of go in there anymore? Oh, well,
Sister Oleander, because it's a sickle cell awareness month, I know we're going to have a guest on as well to share some insights as well. So perhaps what we can do is kind of like, let's put a pause on this now, and I think they're joining us, you said, in around 10 minutes, and then we can, what I do, I'll go through some of the news now. This is the final part of the news. I was going to close it with that, but we'll do it the other way around. I'll go through some of the news now, and then what we can do is close with our guest discussing some of the issues that the two of you have decided to bring to our attention. So, thank you for sharing that report with us, though. It's much appreciated.
Okay.
So that was just Oleander just sharing some news about Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and we're going to have a guest later on in the program who's going to help provide another personal insight of what it is like to live with sickle cell. This is part of the program that we like to refer to as the good news, the positive news section. We have a few stories here. I'm going to try and go through them within the next 10 minutes. So when our guest joins us, we have at least another 10 minutes to discuss some of the themes that comes up. The first story is that of a new campaign called Broadening Horizon, which has been led by the Royal Society of Chemistry to help people of African heritage and other minority ethnic backgrounds get jobs as chemistry researchers. Now, this might sound like having all institutions got something like this now because of what happened after George Floyd. Well, no, actually they don't. A lot of people said they were going to do things, but they didn't actually follow through on it. One of the reasons why this was very important is because we found out that actually there is only one, and you can see an image of him here. There's only one a chemistry professor of African heritage in the UK. One. And, you know, the report that was conducted, an investigation, found that in chemistry research, racism was pervasive. And they also found out that African people in the field are less well paid and less likely to get promotions. So this was a real issue. This is an ongoing issue. And it's really good to hear that, you know, the Royal Society of Chemistry is taking this seriously. So, like I said, the initiative is called Broadening Horizons, and you know, it's a good initiative. We'll keep an eye on it, and hopefully, this time next year, we'll have more than one chemistry professor throughout the whole of the UK of African heritage. That's a ridiculous figure, isn't it? Okay, the next story. Next story is another, well, I think it's an inspirational story, actually. Just as a heads up, I mean, I know this is based, this program is based on UK news, but I want to big up also the whole team of Abbott Elementary, which is one of the favorite sitcoms of Oleander and I, which cleaned up at the awards recently, and it's just a feel good program, like Ted Lasso, who talks about sorry, it's just like a feel good program. I'm losing my focus. It's a feel good program that makes us remember, you know what I mean, why we get into things like education, why we get into coaching, all these kind of things. And in a world where all the programs that we see have been quite negative, I think it's really nice that we have you know, kind of like recognition of that work. My memory's gone with the name of her surname, the person who runs who made the program, Quintana. I've forgotten her surname. I'll have to find that. I think one of the things we're going to have to do with this program is have live researchers while I'm thinking. What was her name? Quintana. It's gone. Anyway, as an aside, the good news, the positive news, is that this young brother, Craig Ross, he's 35 years of age. He was a student at Ealing Primary School, and ever since he was 10 years old, he said that he knew that he wanted to be a teacher. He had this great experience. I think it was at year 6, and the school he went to, St. Gregory's, kind of like planted this seed within him. He left primary school, went to what's it, Cardinal Wiseman Catholic School in Greenford, did English, maths, science, all at A level, went to University of Roehampton, he studied education, and he's now come back to the school that he was at primary. And it's just an amazing story, really. He said he always knew he wanted to work in primary education instead of secondary education. He makes the point that you know, primary school education, those younger years, those formative years from the age 0 to 5, are the most important in a child's development. And so he just loves his job. He loves his post. He loves inspiring the young children and saying to them, hey, you know, I started at this school. I'm the head teacher. And like, whatever you set your aspirations for, you can achieve. So Craig Ross, 35, we salute you.
Sorry, 1 second. There's a message from Amapoku. Are you able to share the name of the chemistry professor, please? Oh,
you know what? I've forgotten the brother's name. If I don't know if there's only one. I think if you type in African, if someone could do that, if someone, because like, it'd be nice to have it in the program. If someone can type in African chemistry professor UK into Google, there's only one brother in the whole UK. Give us that name so I can give him his props properly. I have to apologize. I'm so awful with details sometimes, and we'll share that. And it's good to hear from you, Sister Amma, as well. And we'll get that sorted out as well. So yes.
And And sorry, and then there's greetings, Brother Toyin, from Afrithinker. Ooh, Igima.
Okay, greetings, brother Effinker. Good to have you with us. Much appreciated for the support. It's nice to know that we have some listeners out there, and you know, your energy always keeps us moving forward. So give thanks for that. Now, just to reiterate the good news, and let's keep going on with this, is there's going to be a festival at Islington Town Hall on the 4th of October. It's called Go Africa, and it's a movement mobilizing African and African Caribbean creative communities in the hope that they come together to showcase the talent, art, and culture that exists in London. Now, this is a really great initiative. It's hosted by Islington Council for their last ever event over the 2 years in the iconic listed building, which is known as Islington Town Hall. It's going to exhibit artwork, and like I said, it's going to bring together all the skills learned and showcase what was achieved through the 2022 program. And it's going to, you know, it's said to be a day to remember, with indoors activities, delicious food, and a real fun day for children, you know, as well as the family. So if you are in Islington, I mean, you know, I live in Hackney, we're not that far away, so and get a chance, I'm going to try and drop by. Go Africa. This is you know, a festival of arts in Islington Town Hall. It's just reminded me that there's also an amazing young brother who does exhibitions talking about the Biafra War. I saw his art when I was away in Liverpool for a conference recently, and I said that I'm going to try and either see if I can host one of his exhibitions at our community centre, or at least just, you know, try and raise the profile of some of the issues that are that we often see buried. And the reason why I mentioned Biafra, just as a reminder, is because you know, I think I spoke about this last week about the racism that was faced by an African American scholar, Uja Amar, I think is her name, the professor, who is a child of Biafra. I don't mean that in a pejorative term, but just to say that she has lived experience of some of the atrocities which was sponsored by the British. And so there's this penchant not to talk about the Biafra conflict and the devastation that it wrought and the implications, because people think it's just going to bring civil unrest. But the reality of the situation is that it's a sore wound. So I will try and make sure by this time, by the next program, I've got back in touch with the brother, and I apologize for that on the to-do list. Okay, next slide is this is an amazing brother. I am not one, for anyone who knows me, I don't really like celebritydom. I don't like really the cult of personality. I don't like kind of like pampering to people's egos. It's just not my thing. I know it's important, you know. I mean, I think I draw a thin line between what I call role models and role models. And I think we get sent a lot of role models, you know, first black to do this, first this to do that, first black to, and role models. And I find there are so many role models who've inspired me and many others who most of us don't know. They have Twitter followers like myself, or YouTube, or Facebook followers like us, you know, like a couple of hundred, maybe 1,000 or so. And we don't aspire to have millions of people watching us and talking about us every single day. It's just not in the game plan. It's not something that we particularly want. But every now and then you do come across these individuals who they have talent, and somehow, you know, the talent is recognized in a white supremacist system, and yet they still manage to survive soul intact. And in this particular case, I'm talking about John Boyega. John Boyega is he's like myself, comes from Nigeria, or a country that's named Nigeria. That's another issue. Frederick Ludgard gave it, or Flora Shaw, his wife, gave it that name. We shouldn't be calling it Nigeria. That's another story. And he was in the UK to discuss his new film, The Woman King. And there's this amazing interview inside, is it GQ? Yes, the GQ magazine. I read it actually early this morning, and I just chuckled. I chuckled in a good sense that there's a sense of confidence and pride. It's a young man who's leaning into his African identity uncompromisingly, and becoming not a role model, which is what happens with a lot of people. We have a lot of actors of African heritage in the UK, and a lot of them are role models. You know, they only speak out when it's safe to speak out, but not our brother John Boyega. He talks about what it means. I mean, many of us remember the comments he made during the Black Lives Matter protests for George Floyd, but he talks about the issue of what he's doing and how it felt to be raised in Peckham, what it was like watching Lupita Nyong'o on his on his bed on the floor, because his Argos bed, as he called it, broke down, and so he had to sleep on a mattress on the floor. And then, you know, a year later, ending up in a film, I think it was Black Panther, with her, and he's just inspiring. And let alone the fact that he was in Star Wars, and then because he was in Star Wars, you know, there was this outrageous racist outpour that he was subjected to. Well, enough about that. I must sound like what they call it, a fanboy, and like I said, I don't do that fan thing about other human beings, but I do this respect thing. And one of the things he answered when he was asked, kind of like directly, was how does he like his women? And he just says, well, he likes African women. You know, I think his word was, I like my women black. And many people were outraged by his comments, just by him stating he has his personal preference for dating African women. He said he's even lost friends because he's had this firm anti-white supremacy stance. What kind of friend could they be if they're opposed to him being anti-white supremacy? Anyway, our brother has taken to Twitter to defend himself for saying that he prefers African women, and you know, he in his usual style, he says that, you know, when they're talking about preferring blondes or brunettes, they're not talking about a wig. He says, because my preference is not a topic for debate. I mean, and he's damn right. So anyway, I mean, that's probably enough of my gushing over someone. He's a young African, immense amount of talent, and you know, he knows when to say nope with style. And I just thought it'd be good to put it in the good news. Read the GQ interview if you get a chance. And the last good news story I want to share is on a similar line. You know, I spoke earlier about the awesome influence of Stormzy. I'm not even going to pretend that I'm a fan of Stormzy's music. I'm not. You know, I mean, I heard about this video. I went onto YouTube to watch it, and I heard N-word this, N-word that. And even though I tried to, you know, listen through to what he was saying, it rankled me. But can I deny the brother's brilliance, his inspirational energy, his ability to put his money, not his ability, his actions, his willingness, his commitment to putting his money where his mouth is and supporting young African children, African people, you know, authors, with his imprints, his scholarship programs, and now this amazing video, which I would just skip the first 3.5 minutes. Sorry, Stormzy, it's just me. I can't listen to the N-word. Skip the first minute and just go straight to the poem. Just go straight, which is I can't remember who wrote it, but it's recited by Michaela Cole. I think the one who did that BBC program. What was that thing that everyone was talking about? That which dealt with consent and sexual abuse. Irritates me. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Where he pulls together so many African people, and of course, this is a Pan-African program, so I'm talking about Africans from the Caribbean, Africans from the UK, but whatever their heritage. He pulls together all these African people as a beacon of excellence, and it's an amazing recital by Michaela Cole, and you know, it's uplifting. It's just so uplifting. The song is called what is it? Mel made me do it. And it's just hilarious being on social media. I do have that Twitter app on my phone, unfortunately. It's really odd. I took it off for a week, and no, 2 weeks I took it off, and actually my head was clear. I didn't wake up stressed. I didn't, because, you know, I've got this bad habit now. I wake up and kind of like, as I'm getting my hair, I have a quick look, and you just start the day with negative energy. Those 2 weeks when I had it off, it was just clear. It was beautiful. And I don't know why I put it back on. I might have to go back to that. But the point is, they're confused. They don't know who Mel is. And I'm not going to, please don't share. Don't tell them who Mel is. The me just writing a whole load of nonsense, because, you know, they don't understand. And this is what happens when you pretend you're inclusive. You pretend that you're involved in equity and diversity. But the reality situation is that you don't have anyone who's grassroots, anyone who has a level of authenticity, that they understand, that they share our cultural codes, our cultural language, those constructs that we have that uplift us, that sustain us, that enable us to survive white supremacist dogma. So yeah, this new single, Mel Made Me Do It. It came out on Thursday. You can watch the video on YouTube. It's got people from Dave, Little Sims. Do you remember the mother of Jamal Edwards, Brenda Edwards? She's on there. There's even, it's not all African. There's also what's that football manager, Jose Mourinho or something like this. I think even Jonathan Ross. There's the DJ Nelson. There's Beresford, Jazzy B. There's it's just amazing. Gabriel, and the lyrics sync with the visuals, and this is why I talk about excellence. So there's cameos from sports, from the music, and you know, the music industry. What's my oh God, my queen, the one who wrote Noughts and Crosses, Mallory Blackman. How could I forget? You know what I mean? It's just like a celebration of our excellence. And I really wanted to end the good news section on there. I mean, I know there are other things, and I know this week the good news might seem a little bit celebrity orientated. I don't mean it to come across that way, but this is what happened in the last 2 weeks, and this program reports on what happened in the last 2 weeks. And I'm hoping that we'll continue to have positive news, uplifting news, good news to share, to marry against all that outrageous stuff that we had to deal with in our day-to-day life. I'm going to leave it there.
So, yeah, we've got just a few messages I wanted to read out before we invite Courtney into studio. So Linda has said the name of the professor is Professor Robert Mokaya. Emma says thanks.
Professor Robert Mokaya. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda, for sharing that with us. That's amazing.
Yep. Emma says thanks. And then wait, sorry, I went to the wrong one. Kenya Sue Smart says, watching and hearing you, Brother T, these ones are not his friends at all. That's when you were talking about the young brother, the actor, when you were saying that the friends have he's lost friends because of his preferences.
John Boyega, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And thank you for sharing, Sister Kenya Sue. You're right. If you are angry at someone speaking out against white supremacy, you're not really a friend, are you? You're just one of those latch-on people who just kind of like on the coattails.
Yeah. And then Dee says, are there any Black British couples? Black not mixed. And
that's a really, Sister Oleander, hold on one second. That's a really good question as well. And it's not to put down couples that are interracial relationships, but actually we don't see many examples of that. And you know, I saw a story this week which didn't make it to this program about a young boy who looked at his mother and said she was lighter skin than him, lighter skin complexion, and he said, I want to be, you know, I wish my skin color was the same as yours. And it broke her heart. And perhaps that's some research that we need to do, even if it's just one program. We just need to show some couples, you know, just to remind people that actually we fall in love, with all different shades within our community. And and other than adverts, and even there was a spate where the adverts were showing all African families in that sense. It seems to slipped away from that, which kind of makes it come across as if there's something abnormal. And there's not. This is, anyway, good question. It's just something I'll think on.
Yeah. So Dee says, thanks for the new show. Please do more.
Oh,
And the
thank you,
last,
Dee.
yeah, and the last one is from Sister Doctor. Oh, Sister Doctor Sandra. Excellent broadcast, Brother Doctor. Give thanks.
Thank you, Sister Doctor. And you know that we're hoping to have you join us pretty soon. So it's a blessing to have you here with us. Okay.
Okay, so we've got... Sorry,
And
go
with
on.
that, sorry, let me... Woo, the heat. And with that, I think we have our guest. Let me see if I can bring him into the stream. And our amazing, our wonderful brother.
Courtney.
I'm literally King, Brother King, literally.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Greetings, Brother King.
Really good to see you both. Really good to see you both. 1 second, I'm
Yes.
just going to adjust my headphones. Noise cancelling. Now I can't hear my voice. That's much better. Yes. Hi, Oleander. Hi, Toyin. Really good to see you both, man.
Hi, Courtney. Nice to see you.
My volume's okay and everything?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Good.
Now, so, Toyin, do you want to start?
I'm going to come out for a bit, so the two of you, because I can't change the size of the screen, and all I can see is I'm just massive. So I'm going to come out.
Maybe there's something in that.
My ego.
In regards to the regard in which I view you.
Oh, thanks. That's always got the lyrics, then. Always got the lyrics. But it's good to see you. I'll be here listening and stuff, and I'll join in with the conversation as you go by. So I'm just gonna.
No problem. Hey.
Oh, welcome, Courtney. It's really beautiful to see you.
Yeah, let me lower that down a bit.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So yeah, we're going to just have a little chat for about 10 minutes or so. But I mean, if it organically goes to longer, then fair enough. But I know you've got things to do.
I got Leo down to bed. He's listening to some kind of sleep meditation thing, and he's happy. Cassie's asleep with her mom. I've got a cup of tea, sleepy tea, and chocolate eclair. Well, it's not just chocolate; it's got cream in it too. And I love that. So
nice.
Everything's right with the world.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so I just had a few pointers, but I mean that I was going to ask you about. So I was just going to say, just briefly, obviously say whatever you want to say that you're comfortable. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Courtney. My name's Courtney King. I have sickle cell, SC, not SS. Parents found out when I was about a year old. Actually, the doctors knew about it previous to that, but they never bothered informing my mum. I only found that out a few months ago. They didn't tell her until she went back to them and was saying there's something wrong. I'm 50, and I used to be a DJ. That was a fun job, and now I'm a psychotherapist, and it's a fun job too in a different kind of way. And I mean, I know you guys from the sickle cell support group in Hackney. Solace SG is not just Hackney though, is it? We spread out to anywhere in London. Everyone's welcome. Outside of London's welcome. I'm very into, I suppose, medicine and holistic medicine at the same time. I like the idea of 360 degrees of health, and I started an association or community group called Health 360 a few years ago to enable people with disabilities, primarily with sickle cell, to access things like massage, Tai Chi, yoga, things like that. That's on the back burner for now because time isn't available, but I still very much believe in that kind of thing. yeah, I'm a bit of a geek, I suppose, and an old hip hop freak. That's me.
Okay.
Old school.
Yeah. So the next question I had for you really was, what would you say are some of the challenges that you've had to live with having the condition of sickle cell?
Yeah, I've been thinking about how to answer this because there's different levels to it. Like, part of me, it's been very difficult to navigate. And with thought, with hindsight, I can see that I chose professions where I could duck out and take time off if I needed to, and that weren't full-time kind of office jobs. I think it's up to an individual how they kind of proceed with something like this. But I found that working within something that I felt passionate about, like music or art. When I was young, I used to do a lot of art. I used to write. My first job was writing computer game, like reviewing computer games for a computer magazine way back when. And I got it because I was off sick from school for the day. I was 13, and I was reading this magazine, Commodore Computing International, and they didn't have any reviews for the Commodore 16, which is the one I had. The Commodore 64 was the popular one, but we couldn't afford that. So we had the Commodore 16, and they didn't have any reviews. So I called them up on the phone, and I said, "Look, you haven't got any reviews." My voice hadn't broken. You haven't got any reviews, and I was happy that they sent me some games to trial out, and I trialed. I wrote some reviews for them, and that was my first job. I had that job for 5 years. So I've always done work from then onwards that have been things that I enjoy, that I'm passionate about. When I was younger, I didn't really think I was going to live long, because that was the message that I was told. So I was never really looking at a career. I was just looking at enjoyment. What can I get out of this? What is this fun for me? And so that's kind of been my driver. And once I moved out of DJing, and I had to move out of DJing because I damaged my ears and I became visually impaired. Club environments were no longer that comfortable for me. When that happened, I was like, okay, so I got myself a piano, which you see behind me, and took some time out and was amazed. I was seeing a counselor at the time, and I was amazed by how much my identity and what I did were caught up with each other. Like, they're not the same thing. I'm Courtney, regardless of what I do, but actually feeling that and believing that was really difficult. And I realized that, the ego, the props you get for being a DJ had helped prop some of myself up. I needed to get rid of that, rescaffold, and reconnect with who I am as a person. And that took a lot of therapy, and I became a therapist, which is, which works. It works for me.
Yeah.
But it's,
okay.
I suppose it's that idea of doing for me, it's been about doing something I love, and I don't think that's necessarily the path for everyone. And, caught up in that is when I wasn't working or when I was taking time off, there's like the stress of, what's the term they use now? Benefit scrounger. Yeah, I mean, since 2010, they've been stuffing that down our throats for like mad, isn't it? And, the idea of being on benefits, the idea of being a black man on benefits, the idea of being a man who isn't working full time, that patriarchal BS, really, in so many ways that one swallows down and internalizes sometimes, questioning my manhood, questioning you know, what am I? What makes me worth something? These all come up quite a lot if you have something like sickle cell where, bam, can't work. Bam, can't work. It's a random, sudden thing that can creep up. And then, you know, the thing is, we all live with that, but it's a reality for me and many people like me. And within my profession now, I make reasonable adjustments for myself in private practice. You know, like when I was in placement, the company I worked for, they were great. But if you're going to take a week off, you need to give a month's notice. If you're going to take 2 weeks off, you give 2 months' notice, and so on. Which is, you know, that's looking forward quite a long way. And as you know, sickle's random. So, you know, I try my best. I have a contract, a counselling agreement that I've put together, and it's, you know, roughly a month, and there's some elasticity there. You know, my health, touch wood, fingers crossed, all that superstitious stuff. It's like, it's been really good. My health has been really good. You know, I've been taking hydroxycarbamide. It's been working for me. So my crises are very manageable and very few and far between these days, and have been for about 10 years. But man, like, if not for that, I don't even know if I'd be able to be a counsellor, you know? I just don't know if I'd be well enough, regular enough to do that. And having lived with that for most of my life, it's very strange to be in a position where I'm mostly well and not worried. And I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, you know, always suspicious of my wellness and waiting to fall ill, and, you know, hoping I don't. And it's, I think it's hard for people with sickle cell to make a living that is satisfying and rewarding. I think a lot of people that I know that are in full-time employment, not self-employed, working for like organizations like councils, like the NHS, that have to follow the Equality Act and use that kind of framework and structure for their employees. There's a lot of people in the banking sector, etc., they just wouldn't put up with random bouts of illness, and they would get rid of you, even if they wouldn't say that was necessarily the reason. Maybe that's just me being paranoid. I don't know.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thanks for that, Courtney. I've just got, two more questions. Do you think if you didn't have sickle cell, would it have made a difference to your personality, to you?
A big question. Yeah. It's so. Yeah, I do, because I don't know. I don't know what it's like to not have it, and there's something about having bouts of pain, excruciating pain, from my earliest memories onwards, that I think molds a person, regardless of whether I might want it to or not. So yeah, I think it definitely has. Me and sickle are inextricably linked in some ways. I don't think it's all that I am, but I don't know what a life might be like where I haven't had to sit in a room for 3 or 4 days, pretty much on my own, counting the seconds, rubbing my arm, wondering if I might be better off losing the arm or losing my life rather than to carry on. That's me. That's part of my experience. as my part of my existence, and to try and disentangle the parts that are illness and the parts that are Courtney is an impossibility at my age now, you know.
I mean, it's a very, very deep existence, really, having sickle cell. And I just want to end on one last question, which is, and I know there must be some, what would you say are the positive sides of sickle cell?
Well, it's like what I was just saying there, you know, that that ability for me to meditate, to travel into my mind, to develop ideas. Like, you know, I remember thinking about karma before I knew what the word karma was or what it meant, but I developed a way of being that included that in my life as a coping mechanism. I can be very meditative. I can be very thoughtful. I think it enables me in some ways to be very compassionate towards other people, and have empathy. It's like, you know, a lot of people I work with have their own crosses to bear, and some of them involve pain and physical ailments and disabilities and stuff like that. And I think I know it's been useful for people to have therapy with someone that can relate to those type of things, even if it might not be exactly the same. And you know, it's like so much of my client base, Black, brown, disabled, LGBTQIA, you know, othered minoritized groups of people, and they see me on the BACP website, and it's like it springs out to them. I suppose there's a thread of maybe empathy that I think a lot of people with sickle cell carry. I think it's given me an ability to deal with things in my stride. You know, I remember going away to uni and realizing I had my head screwed on quite well compared to a lot of people around me, because my sense of proportion about what was important and what wasn't, you know, I could always see my essays or the things that I was late with or struggling with in terms of a degree or whatever as like just a piece of paper. It wasn't life or death. It wasn't like acute chest syndrome or a terrible crisis or losing your sight in one eye or hip replacement or whatever, you know. It was very manageable by comparison. And so one gets a sense of proportion for life. I suppose it's made me so thankful. I'm 50 years old and I never thought I'd live here. I'd be here at that point, you know. I never did believe that.
Give thanks.
You know, I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Grateful.
And we are grateful too to you, Courtney, so much. And thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day to be a busy evening, I should say, to come and spend a bit of time with us. We must do this again.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'd love to. And
Courtney, can I say, I mean, earlier I spoke on about role models and role models. And, you know, just so you know, you're one of my role models.
Absolutely.
You know, there's always been just you. I mean, there's been many stereotypes about people with sickle cell, you know, being lazy and whatless and all the negatives that we've heard.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? And despite all of that, you know, your living testimony of someone who said, this is the condition that I live with, this is me. And I have aspirations, I have dreams, and I'm going to reach for them and achieve them. People don't know the work that you've done. Not even, you know, just kind of like achieving, you know, the heights of that you've done and actually, you know, qualifying and being a counselor and giving support to others, but also just within, you know, the sickle cell community itself as well at the same time, and the challenges it is. And so for me, it's just amazing, let alone that you put me on to some great sci-fi, cool music taste. So thank you for coming onto the program. It's been a pleasure just listening. It's nice, to hear and reflect on you. We'll catch up soon as well. So.
Nice one. Always a pleasure to see you too, man. Bless.
Definitely. We must catch up physically as well, not just virtually.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will.
Definitely.
All right then.
Take care.
Okay.
Right.
Thank
Peace.
you.
Peace.
Take care. So, Toyin, there's just a few other what do you call it?
Messages.
Messages. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. No, I'm just still thinking about what Courtney was saying. It's just excellent. FP Com says, so glad to have caught the show this week.
Thank you. Another amazing person in our community working to bring out the entrepreneurial spirit of so many and make their dreams. Thank you. That's lovely. I'm glad that you're here.
And D says, are there any London Black Talk radio stations or internet Black community forums? I can't find any. There used to be many a decade ago. What happened?
Just a quick one on that one. I heard that Galaxy is still running. I haven't heard it for a while myself. There were many, you're right. I used to kind of like take part in some of them as well, but a lot of them were shut down. When that FM Broadway started to be heavily policed because they were community stations without licenses, so it became difficult with raids and equipment being seized, and the money it took to replace transmitters. And then we had Colourful, and the DAB fiasco took place. But perhaps that's something we can do for another day. We can look into seeing if there are stations that are doing talk. I know there's still several stations that do music. But as Jeff Schumann used to say, I remember that when he was on Choice FM, we cannot and should not dance our way through life. And so it's important that we do have talk radio. There's some international ones, but I don't know about any that are based solely on a UK perspective. Yeah, I suppose that's just a short answer to your question. But I'm interested myself, or we'll have to bring Jan Sapper back and find a new crew of DJs. Sorry, Sister Oleander.
No, that's fine. That was the last message, so we can. Yeah.
Ah, that was the last message. Okay. Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Well, the last slide is, as ever, our dedication and saying thank you to all of you out there. I also like to thank our brother Colin for providing research. We also had a helping hand put together the slides this week, and that was immense. So give thanks as well to all our Legali supporters and community. We're going to keep developing the program. If you liked having a guest, then please let us know. It's something we're thinking about doing on a regular basis and get the timings right, so we don't go over 90 minutes, but that's, depending on how much news is going through. I want to thank our guest, Brother Courtney King, literally for coming in and sharing his insights on what it really means to live with sickle cell and beyond the stereotype. It's not easy, and he's an inspirational role model and example of what happened. It doesn't mean that he doesn't experience any trauma that others do, but thank you for coming to the program. I probably need to update these images, just for those of you who don't know. I'm a Malcolm man, always have been. So Malcolm and Dr. Martin Luther King, part of my cultural education. It's my father in the middle, and yes, that is a young Toyin, a daddy's boy. I was raised in a single household by my father with my sister, so many people don't know that. And my academic mentor, my late Dr. Abiola Ogunshola, jointly ancestors, didn't get to see me become a doctor and pass my PhD. Well, not in this realm anyway, but it was her encouragement that led to me believing that there was actually a role for academia and education in community development. So I don't know if you want to say anything to close, Sister Oleander.
Just an answer from FP Comms to D, which is there are a couple of print outlets and podcasts that you can look at. And aside from that, I want to just say I did miss the show and glad to be back, and look forward to the next one. Not sure what we'll be covering next time. But yes, indeed, it's been great. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. And spread the news. Hopefully we'll get more people to learn about what we do here. And so just want to say good night and sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite.
We'll be back on the 9th of October 2022, as you know, between 7 and 8:30. Thank you for being with us, and I'm going to close as I always do, and thanks Sister Oleander for being with us, and yourself for being with us, and say may the ancestors continue to guide and protect us. Ashe.
Ashe.